I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still.
I don't care if it's Muhammad, Imard, Bruce Lee.
And Steve Newby.
This is the original Five Fingers of Death right here.
But my hands are registered as lethal weapons. That means we get into a fight, I accidentally kill you, I go to jail.
Right, are we good to go? You got your dosed up on caffeine and
I've got my coffee with me.
yeah, oh, good stuff. Right, are we ready? You good to go? Green light, red light? Yeah.
Have we rehearsed this? No.
No.
Okay.
Rehearsal? What are you talking about? Come on, we're not that good. Oh God. Well, okay, guys, welcome to another episode of the Kung Fu Podcast with me, James Still, and the notorious Steve Newby in Canada. Hi, Steve.
Hi. Yeah, you're pretty much right about the notorious, and you're the black sheep of the family.
Oh,
yeah,
but you wouldn't have it any other way, would you?
No one ever agreed with me.
No, not bitter, are you? No. We are on, unlucky for some, pod 13. So what you been up to since I last spoke to you now? And it genuinely has been a couple of days. Normally we sort of speak every other day, don't we? But I haven't spoke to you for a while.
No, I've been doing my training and my new job training as well. So got to get that sorted. So going to be a upstanding citizen eventually.
Yeah, eventually.
We're just everyone's off work now. It's just so hard to get out. I mean, we can go walks and everything. It's not too bad. But I went down the park today next to the lake, and we did a little bit of videoing of some stick stuff because we had some inquiries about that, some questions about the stick.
Yeah.
I sent her a video.
Okay, you can't mention names.
Well, it's just a single name, isn't it? It's not going to hurt.
Well, I'm just saying we've got to protect people's anonymity here.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So-
that's true. I wouldn't say that was exactly a giveaway, though.
Well, no, but that's a foghorn moment, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
all right then.
Is that listen? I'd love to be able to shout people out, but we gotta make sure no one feels awkward about asking us questions, because I kind of think that if you're training, with your instructor or whatever, it's kind of a bit, you might feel a bit funny about asking other people their opinions on it, but
Yeah, that's true, because people often think, it's hard to say really, but they do think that they should be listening to. They kind of have a perception of who people are and sort of respect for people, their standing, rather than considering the knowledge and the logic in some questions. So I think it's good to ask questions. I always ask questions, and I expect everybody to ask me. I expect people to grill me to find out what I'm talking about.
oh yeah.
Usually they have to, though, don't they? What the hell are you...
What do you think? It's like trying to get blood out of a stone.
Yeah.
I was what have I been up to? I was doing the sword set the other day and nearly sliced my finger off like a prize idiot. I when you press down on top of the sword.
Yeah.
I'm quite like slick with getting my hand out of the way, covering the centre, whatnot. But this time, my index finger got in the way, got a bit of a slice, and it would stop bleeding.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that we do have a tendency to train with good weapons.
Well, yeah.
And that's the thing a lot of people just do not do, is train with weapons are actually useful in the field, if you like.
Yeah. Oh, 100%, 100%. So you kind of alluded to it. We've had some questions this week. So we'll basically deal with those first. Later on, we're going to talk about Feilung Ji, the 5th set in Lau. But I was going to say, we've had some dislikes on our YouTube vids.
Well, of course. What do you expect?
Hey, the one with you doing the first set, some people didn't like it.
No.
But they just put a thumbs down because I've switched off comments. I'm not like, I wouldn't answer comments anyway. And the thing is with the comments on YouTube, it's just trolls, isn't it? If you got a question, guys, by all means, reach us through Facebook, Messenger, email Steve, whatever. You can find the emails on the website.
Yeah, they can always question me, personally if they want to.
Yeah,
and where it'll be a really good thing is they sent a video and showed me how they did it.
Absolutely, guys. There's in today's world, send a video just so we know exactly what you're talking about. Because often, us do, we find it hard to describe, in words and talk about it. On the podcast.
No, but anything that's put on video, and this is the one thing I've said this before on podcast. I don't like doing videos because people judge you for the exact thing that you do that day, and you do it that day. The next day, or even the next time, you may do it slightly differently. You may have a different perception of it because there's lots of different reasons to do it. And obviously, some people have different ideas and different reasons to do it. But if they do, show us. Yeah, by all means. Absolutely. I'd love to learn off you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You tell me.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Right, should we press on? So, the first question, okay, and we'll go from the question about the sticks. All right. Okay. This person writes in and says, "Hi, Steve. The eyebrow pole. Are you saying that the 2-man stick for Brown and 2nd degree, the weapon itself, we all basically purchase a 6-foot bow staff, should technically be personalized to the length of the practitioner? I'm 5'3", and feeding the staff always leaves about a foot out the end unless I actively engage in jumping the staff through my grip." And she goes on to say, "Not ideal, I know." Okay, so that's the first question, Steve. So basically, the length of the stick, it's got to be personalized to you. So go ahead.
Yeah, well, I have answered this inquirer. Yeah. And I did a little demonstration for them. And basically, I remember going to a grading once, and the guy standing at the door with his pretty much a shirt, tie, everything, his badge and all that kind of thing. He wasn't on the panel. Right. He was just letting people in and out the door. Right. And my guys turned up, and they all had poles, of varying sizes according to their height. And he goes, your poles are too short. And I says, why is that then? He says, oh, they should be 6 foot long. And I went, they're called eyebrow poles for a reason. Right?
Was that one of them moments that didn't go down very well for you?
It's one of them moments that kind of give me the reputation of being a black sheep. Yeah. Because I am true to the technical spirit of martial arts, as opposed to conforming to some kind of religious sect. Right. And so it's really important to understand that it's got a name. It's an eyebrow pole. Yeah. Other people will call it a slippery pole, and that's how they kind of dodge the length kind of thing, because they say, yeah, but you slip it through your hands. Well, yeah, you can slip it through your hands, and you can slip it out the end of your hands as well. But the thing is, let's just look at the slipping for a second. If you're slipping it without maintaining control of it with one hand, then you can't rotate it. Now, when I say rotate, I mean rotate on its axis. In other words, twisting it in your hand, right? Not rotating it as in swinging it from end to end. Yeah, or anywhere for that.
Just as a point of reference, guys, on our YouTube channel, SDN Martial Arts, we've got a video, and I'm just talking about the rotation, what Steve is talking about there.
I'm going to put a thumbs down. I am. I'm going to put thumbs down.
Yeah. On a very brief video. On a very brief video. So if you're unsure what we mean by the rotation, that's what we're talking about. But
we will do a bigger video, a longer video. I tried today, as I said, but the sound wasn't good, and too much wind. We're going to get ourselves one of those big mics that cut out the sound of the wind, and because when you're standing by the lake, you can imagine there's quite a lot of wind.
It must be hell.
Standing by an 85-mile long lake.
Yeah. That's it. But guys, if you do go on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to us. That would be a massive favour to us. We'd appreciate that. Anyway, go on. We're talking about the rotation.
Okay, so basically it's an eyebrow pole. It has a length, the width of your grip, being able to hold on to it and touch the ends. When you put that stick on the floor, the other end should reach your eyebrow, and that's as high as it needs to go. And that gives you a complete control of that stick. Now the issue was, this inquirer's got to slide it through their hands in order to achieve each end, using each end. Problem you've got there, of course, you haven't got so much control over it, and if you're sliding it, it's not really going in the direction you want it to. You don't need to slide it, because if it's your size and it's your weapon, then what tends to happen is you can use both ends right to the maximum, and it is the tip of the stick that is obviously the most powerful. Now, you can argue that a big guy is going to have a bigger stick, so therefore that's not fair. Well, then I would suggest that you better start growing longer arms then, because you got shorter arms as well, and you're still going to fight bigger people. So it's quite obvious that your arms suit you, otherwise you'd be running around like a gibbon. And you're able to hit people, and I would argue that if you watch give me a name, Sharon Gill, there's a good one. If you watch Sharon Gill sparring, she's knee-high to a grasshopper. She does a lot of fighting with Sean Vieira because they work together, and they did a little demonstration at the Nationals 2018, was it? You were showing me the other day.
So, yeah, that was it. Yep.
Yeah, they did a little demonstration of fighting. She gets inside him, she strikes at him, she reaches him, no problem. Doesn't just use her legs, she uses her hands, she counters, she sets him up, all sorts of things. That's basically just using her short stature to fight a taller guy. And with a stick, you get inside with a stick, with a guy with a 6 foot or a 7 foot pole or whatever. You get inside with a 5'3" pole, and you are going to be able to block it and then be able to strike at him. The closest target is his fingers. You take those fingers out, you take the pole out, and even then, once you're inside, the rest of the pole, it is completely irrelevant how long that pole is. Because once you're inside it, it don't matter. It can't bend and come back on you.
But I mean, if you are of short stature, and like this inquirer, 5'3", and you're with a 6 foot pole, because it's a double-ended pole, that implies you are changing the use of either end, which means you've got to turn it around. And so what's to stop you from hitting it on the floor?
Well, exactly.
And so you're at more disadvantage. With
it's too big. It's too big. It's too big for them.
When you mentioned earlier on, you said you don't have as much control with a longer stick. What exactly did you mean by that?
Well, I meant that if she was trying to slide it through hands from end to end, and not having a one-handed grip on it as the other hand slid, because that's what tends to happen, then of course anyone can take control of that stick. While it's sliding through your hands, you haven't got such a tight grip. I mean, what offends me most is when people are doing an upper block with it, across the head with it, holding it with both hands, and then some instructors go, oh, if you just grip it with your fingers so that your fingers aren't over the top of the pole, you can't hit your fingers. Well, he's not going to aim for them if they're not there, is he? He's going to, and if he hits the pole, it'll just bounce straight out your hand.
That was exactly one of the points I was going to say to you. How many times have you seen that? and it jumps out. It's just like, well,
it bounces out your hand because you're not gripping it, you're not holding it properly.
Yeah.
Let's face it, if he's aiming for your fingers, move your damn fingers.
Yeah.
You know, be aware what's happening with the fight. You know, with a stick. The other thing is, of course, when you're left with that extended the piece that you can't use, one end you can use it when you're in an orthodox position, holding the stick out in front of you with your left hand at the base, okay, and you're using the other end to strike. That's fine. When you transfer it around your body and you try to reach for that other end, okay, with your right hand, trying to pull it round so that you can then hit with the opposite side, and your left hand is now out, you'll find that you've got a maybe between a 4-inch to a foot long addition to your pole that you can't use. It's useless to you anyway, so there's no point in having it. But what it is useful for is that the other person, if he can get hold of your weapon, can use that 4 inches, even 2 inches to a foot long of pole to be able to wrap that stick around your wrist when you're holding it, and use it as a lever to completely disarm you. So, and he can do that in any direction, in either direction rotationally. So that makes it very difficult for you. Whereas if you was holding the end of the stick both times, whether right-handed, left-handed, when you're doing the strike, either with the one end or the other, and you are able to contain that pole and hold it, I'll call it a stick for continuity, then he's not going to be able to get it out of you. You can't get it out because you can move that wrist in any direction you want without being caught by the remaining stick, because there is no remaining. So you're using the whole thing, and it's your weapon and it's your height, and that's how you need to utilize a pole for use.
For sure. If we're talking about the types of poles people use, I mean, you know, you can get the hardwood poles. I mean, I love the waxwood flexible ones.
Yes, they're the best, I think.
The best because
they're live. What I mean by that, they've got a live grain, which means they're a lot stronger. I mean, we used to take pride, call it pride if you like, because it cost people money. When we were in Scotland, we used to do the stick forms over and over and over. You used to get maybe up to 3 sticks broken, right? And that's because people would whack them hard, but they were these kind of what they call Japanese oak, which really is probably just varnished pine. I don't know, because they were heavy. Fair enough, they were heavy poles, but they were dead. It was dead wood, so they didn't really have a great grain. They weren't like springy or anything. It's a good idea to have one that has some give in it.
It's kind
so
of
those wax ones are good.
It kind of acts as a shock absorber, I think. In some way.
Springiness is important. I can elaborate if you want about the rotation as well, because I think one of the things people misunderstand, they will miss that if they're sliding it up and down their hands without controlling it, because that one hand is able to rotate it, and as I said, in a circular motion, not the pole, but I'm talking about through its length,
through its axis,
rotation,
if you like. The central axis of the entire pole.
Through. You're twisting it like you were twisting a pen. I don't know.
I think people know what we mean.
And the rotation has at least three different benefits. Firstly, the rotation increases the energy at the end, throughout the pole. Secondly, it stops the pole from being when you strike something hard, like if you hit their stick, it helps to prevent the energy from snapping the pole, because too much energy in one area, it dissipates. It dissipates the energy. And thirdly, if someone were to grab it and you can rotate it, then it makes it very difficult for them to hold it in the same way. Same as if someone grabs your wrist, we were talking about the other week. If someone grabs your wrist and you rotate your wrist, they end up in an awkward position. And so you do the same thing with your stick. You rotate it, and if you rotate it like that, then it makes it very difficult for them to hold. And you can also use it as a lock then.
I mean, going back to you just mentioned the wrist there in relation to the pole. I mean, when someone grabs your wrist, you look at that bone in the arm. I can't remember what it's bloody called now. What is it called? But you rotate that bone. There is nothing for someone to actively grab onto in terms of to hold on and prevent you from a rotation. So it's same in the stick as well. If someone tries to rotate the stick, you can't resist that in a way. But right. What I was going to say, range of the stick when you're practicing the stick sets. So this is important because a lot of people are too close. Yeah. Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
A lot of people are too close. I'll get worried then.
Look, it's because I was opening my aero.
Oh, hey, gotta have the chucky. A lot of people train it too close, but equally, a lot of people train the stick set, and I see it all the time, and they're not even reaching each other to hit.
Yeah,
and that is a big problem.
The very edge, the head of the pole is meant to reach the head of the target. Okay, and this is an interesting point because a lot of people say a downward strike. Okay, in actual fact there's not a single downward strike in, well, let's talk about any of the forms, but particularly we're talking about the double-headed pole or the slippery pole or the rat sorry, not the rat top of the Jesus
pole.
Christ, highbrow pole. Yeah, there you go.
Just call it a stick. We'll be here all night.
I'll go back to that. Yeah, and they say, downward thrust. I think people ought to be aware that there is no downward thrust, because if you did, you'd be smacking yourself in the groin, okay, or in the stomach or something. So in effect, it's from your waist, just like a punch. You're pulling the one hand back to your waist, throwing the other hand out, guiding the stick. So the one is for power by pulling it back, just like you do with a punch. And the other one is for guidance, is for direction when you're pushing it out. So you're doing the two together, which increases the energy. You're rotating it with your right hand if it's a forward right hand strike, and you're ending up with a much more powerful pole, or stick. So
what you're saying is you're pushing down on one end and pulling up the other, and in the middle of the stick, your right hand almost acts as like a fulcrum, and
it's the
point, but it's also guiding the stick towards the target.
That's the one that is guiding the direction of the pole. The left hand is not lazy, it's the one pulling back, but it's pulling back to the waist, which means it's not going directly down. Okay, it's going across, and it's better to go across, because rather than try to just aim down on top of the head, you're actually trying to hit the side of the head, the ear, the neck, the shoulder, even the right on the shoulder, and so on, down that direction.
The amount of targets does open up considerably when you're striking downward. Downward at an angle.
It's also difficult. It's also difficult to escape.
Yes,
much more difficult. It's the same with the sword. If you're cutting diagonally with a sword rather than across or down, of course, it's far more difficult to avoid.
Yeah.
So you've got more targets.
Well, look at in competition fighting an axe kick, for example. You've got to, what can you do other than move out of the way? I understand there are different options, but essentially, most people are going to move back, aren't they? Because they don't want to avoid. They want to avoid.
They can move sideways if it's coming straight down.
I understand that. I was just using the axe. All right, this is what it's like, people. Do you see what I mean? You say one thing, and it's like, no. I know. I'm sorry. God damn. Where am I now? Reaching. What were we saying about reaching? Yeah. Were you going to make a point about you've got to reach people? Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah. That's right. You have got to be. You've got to be. The tip towards their head or whatever target.
Yeah.
So, in effect, you're right in saying a lot of people tend to be, too close together when they're doing it. They're not using the whole stick, so that they actually, even if the stick is their size, they'll tend to hold it back a little bit and end up with a bit at the end, at the back end.
Yeah.
And that's usually because of the place they train in. I mean, we all know that we all get a point where we can't really train very well in this hall, so we'll get a bit closer.
Yeah, sure.
And it's unfortunately that's something that we can't do a great deal about unless we change halls, unless we, you know, there's different directions and so on. Depends on the type of form you've got.
Yeah, sure.
And you know, sticks do take up a lot of space, so you've got to be aware that wherever you train, and you know, a lot of the time the sticks are left to higher grades is simply because, you know, when you're training, you don't want beginners around walking past you not expecting it. It's like throwing a sword around. You do not want to have kids in your class. You don't want to have beginners in your class just walking along not recognizing the danger of that sword as you spin around. And
to take the red off. Right. I just want to briefly, then we'll finish up. I just want to talk about with the stick, and I appreciate, guys, there's a lot we can sort of talk about. I want to talk about the use of the body with the stick, because you see a lot of people when they're attacking, it's particularly in Quan Jern, the first dual man set. They're overextending the stick. It's not close to their body. I appreciate
because they've got a light stick.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're not used to a heavy pole, so they tend to, they get, you know, maybe even used to it, and they tend to, you know, sort of bring it down, and you can do that with a spear. Yeah, because you don't have to rely on the end of the spear to be, you know, solid and actually using the energy of the spear. It's sharp. Yeah, and it's pointy, and it's, you know, so it's whippy. Yeah, so it's a totally different weapon, but people tend to maybe interpret that, and they see that and they go, oh right, well I can overextend my stick, or they've got a lighter stick and they tend to overextend it because of that. No, you need it. It does come back to your waist, and if you are transferring it, the best thing to do, including particularly when you're blocking, is you need to rotate it around your body as well. Keep it tight to your body, in the middle of the stick. You know, the worst thing I see, of course, is people doing Robin Hood, where they're you know, trying to use a 2-foot stick. It's a long pole, and then they try to use it as like a 2-foot either end, which is pointless. Yeah.
The first stick set, it's quite a good introduction to it, isn't it?
It's just a basic training form. Taking nothing away from it for people who are learning that now, and it must be, you know, it's sometimes quite difficult for people to learn those things. Sure. But yeah, it has its place, and it is good. And don't forget to concentrate on your steps as well, and the way and your use of the body when you're, you know, moving the stick, because you've got a lot more energy in it then as well. But yeah, people do tend to try to throw it all over the place, and it should be part of you. And so, you know, keep it useful to you. But the thing about sticks is people do, as I said, overextend them. They throw them about, and really going back to that, the Inquirer with the, you know, 5'3" Inquirer. You know, they're going to go, well, you know, okay, he's got a 6-foot pole, but where are you thinking of hitting him? Because the closest target is his fingers. You take his fingers off his stick, he ain't going to have a pole anyway, so what you got to worry about? So that's all you're doing, is you're covering, and you're just looking for those fingers. Yeah. You know, that's the first thing, and then, you know, the next closest thing to his fingers and his elbows are his knees. So, you know, don't worry about getting in there and try and smack him on the head, because it won't matter if he's got no pole. Yeah,
absolutely right. Yeah, so keep it honest, guys. Steve, we're going to move on. We got another question.
Yeah, that's great.
Right then.
Well, I'm glad that we're getting technical now, because people have asked us to get more technical and less frivolous. Yeah, but we love frivolous.
Oh, we do. Don't take it seriously. Just have fun.
Yeah. But I want people. I want people to ask questions. Yeah. But you know, if people disagree, then bloody give me your argument. What's the point? That's like, it's like Donald Trump, isn't it? It's like saying, I don't agree, I don't like your question. That's it. Right. You know, he doesn't rebuff, he doesn't give any kind of explanation back. So, but then I'm getting political. But it's the same with anything. You know, if someone asks a question in politics or anywhere else, someone's got to give an answer with reason. It's going to be a reasonable answer.
Right, moving on. Next question
Yep.
Oh, right. So, this is a bit of a outside the box question. It says, right, hi Steve. See,
Hi.
Hi Steve. Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm the comedy psychic. I don't expect to get anything. Who am I?
Well, they
Hi,
usually
Steve.
send them to you.
I'm kidding. It does say. It says hi James. I'm trying to make it sound important, man. Right. Okay. I've read of the dragon finger in Shaolin styles. Oh, you started laughing. Right. Listen.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you got to listen to the question. It's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate
I am not
question.
laughing at the guy that wrote it. I'm laughing at the name.
The name, right? Okay. Well, hang on.
Yeah.
Okay, let me read it out first. Do you think you could just maybe stuff another arrow in your mouth to stop you from laughing?
Oh, hang on.
Right. I've read of the dragon finger in Shaolin styles. Basically, a leopard paw, but with the index finger extended and pointing up. And he goes on to say, like the 6th or 7th moves in Tiger Crane. If Lau Gar use it, so he's talking about iron wire palm here. If Lau Gar use it, and we have a set based around the dragon's finger movements, why does it not appear in Lau? And also, what is its use and application? Okay, as it's linked to the dragon, is it to do with chi and energy? Okay, and he goes on to say, which is quite nice, we'll keep recommending the podcast to the people in my club. Thanks for putting it out there. I've also thought maybe you or Steve could put together a further reading type list for people who are interested, maybe some relevant books plus some favorites, just a thought. Okay, and again, guys, if you send us a question, we will not use your name unless you specify. Okay, so we'll keep it under the radar, man. Don't tell anybody. Okay, so dragon finger, basically, is iron wire palm is talking about.
Yep, I'm just going to answer that really quickly because I think it's a great question, and I mean, what makes me laugh is, of course, the way it is, sort of referred to in so many different ways by so many different people. So where he's read it, obviously someone's called the iron wire palm, they've called it a dragon fist or whatever.
Yeah, but it's no different than me calling it iron wire palm. That sounds bloody ridiculous. What's that?
Yeah, well, iron wire palm refers to your tendons. If you pull your fingers back with your finger out, your single finger out, you can have more than one finger out, you can have different fingers out, but if you pull your hands really as far back as you can with those fingers, you'll see all the tendons of your fingers are sticking out of the back of your hand, and that's what it refers to as iron wires. Okay, the iron wire palm. So but the question's been answered already by the guy, because he's got a good idea there, and simply the fact that we don't use it in Fei Long Chi in finger movements of the dragon, because the finger movements of the dragon is about using techniques that work. Okay, not about doing necessary exercises. So you can do that as an exercise, and if you look at Lau Gar sets where a majority of it is repeated exercise, you'll get that, because they're trying to build power. Okay, right. So it's a little bit more of a power-based kind of energetic style in that sense. But Lau Gar tends to be about the fighting aspect, so it has few exercises and far more movements in it. Right. So we don't do it in it necessarily.
But I'm going to tell you off, because I should have a buzzer that says we only do it. We just do it as an exercise.
Well, I'm gonna counter that my own question. That's fine. Because it's not in Fei Long Chi, but you can say, if you want to use it that way, it is in Far Kun. It is in Far Kun,
although it's a contentious point with that. You're talking.
Well, that's why I said if you want to use it that way.
Yeah, but really, whether or not you've got your iron wire palm, we'll call it. Actually, I like dragon finger. I'm going to call it dragon finger from now on. That's my new thing. Okay. Whether you want to do dragon finger or just extend all the fingers in one hand, does it detract? Does it make the technique any different?
No, it doesn't, and that's why in finger movements of not finger movements of the dragon, but in Far Kun, okay, in Flower Fist, the fourth set, It's called the flower hides in the sleeve, and as you withdraw it, some people would do it with 2 fingers, some people would do that single finger, and because it does make it tight, the single finger makes it tight. But the reason you keep the single finger open is because you can then utilize it to grab. So you're not just closing them all like a leopard's paw upside down and then having to move the finger in order to grab. You're literally pulling it backwards as a block, as it would be, as a diversion or a parry, and then you're able to grip whatever you've parried with that finger, which is why the finger is left open when you do it as a flower hides in the sleeve. Some people, as I say, will do it with 2 fingers, and some people might just do it with a complete open hand, but it's not really referred to as the iron wire palm, but in effect you could say that it's exactly the same thing.
What we're talking about, guys, is the part in Farcune after the opening, the uppercut and the leopard's paw. You're going to pivot 90 degrees, aren't you? And then from a fighting stance almost, you're going to step and punch, almost quite a long technique, but it's
only when you go down and come up and then strike. And then you go down and come up and then strike. That's the only 2 times you need to do it.
But flower hide, right? Okay. But the flower hides in the sleeve is from the long gungbo stance, punch, isn't it? And, you know. So, but you're withdrawing that hand, But you're mentioning as well when you go down into the butterfly stance.
You go down. You come up and you punch. Well, that could be a fist, to be honest. Yeah.
See, it's you know, but so here's something I want to put to you, Steve. Right now, and if I'm way out off base, I'll edit this out. Yeah. So if you're listening to this, he's agreed with me, viewers. Now, if take the basic walk and punch as an exercise, right? You're walking down, you're drilling the punches down the room. Okay, basic walk and flat punch. If you take that fist and you make a phoenix eye with the fist, but you're still doing the basic walk and punch, has the technique changed? I would argue no. The only thing that has changed is the target in which you could envisage hitting. But look at the mechanics of the punch, it's still exactly the same. So because it's now called a phoenix eye fist, do you sort of put onto it some sort of mysticism, or it's still a punch? Does that make sense, Steve? Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I was still, you know, while you were saying that, I was going through Farcune.
Oh, for God's sake! But yeah, all right. So you weren't listening then? Is that what you're saying? No.
Basically, there's the thing. I know. I was thinking that, you know, when people come up from the sitting down position, because we were talking about Farcune last week, and they come up from the sitting position and they put their hand out ready to punch. Okay, I was just looking at that and going, you know, some people might do that as an iron wire palm.
Yeah, I've seen it.
And I like that, but I'm not suggesting. It all totally depends on what you're doing it for. Because if you need to protect yourself, then an iron wire palm isn't a great idea, because you've got all your fingers closed except for the one.
Right. So I was saying this.
But if you're doing it just as a pose, then yeah, great. It looks nice.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying to my friend on the phone earlier on. I was saying, listen, if you're going to strike someone with a dragon finger, it's called a dragon finger, by the way. If you're going to strike someone with that, you've got all your fingers curled up. You're gonna crush your fingers. You're gonna hurt yourself. You know, it's gonna hurt.
You're gonna make a choice. You got one finger sticking out. The others, I mean, okay, people do poke in the eye with one finger or whatever.
Yeah, but unity is strength. Unity is strength. Why use one when you could use 2?
Well, you can wrap the one around the other. Yeah, you wrap the one around the other like you were wishing.
Yeah,
that's the best way to do it. But some people do single fingers. It's up to them.
No. You know, if you train it, by all means, go for it.
Well, I have one question to people when they train. You know, if you can do press-ups on your little finger and only on your little finger, where would you hit someone? And people go, the eye, the throat, and I'd say anywhere you bloody well want to. Yeah. Because if you can do press-ups on your finger, you know, on your little finger, then you are doing well, sunshine. Yeah. And you're going to be able to hit anybody anywhere.
Yeah, that's it.
So
Kung Pao. Okay. Going back to, goes on to sort of says, what are some applications of it? Now, you know, are you talking about, you know, the single finger? Are you talking about the movement within the arm? I mean, you know, so it's quite an expansive thing, I think, to start suggesting applications on a podcast. That's going to be something for a video. But in the broad strokes, Steve, could you just, you know, elaborate on what applications it could be?
Well, this is just, you're just pushing out and developing, and that's why it's called iron wire palm. As far as I'm concerned, there's no real application with that unless you're kind of, they do it to strike outwards like a chop, which can be done like a chop, you know, so in effect you don't need to have your iron wire palm out. You can have all the fingers out, because as soon as you close the fingers you are going to limit its use. But as I just suggested, the best way to see the iron wire palm, or dragon's finger, whatever you want to call it, finger, sorry, in Lau, is when you come up from the going down in Farkun, because then you don't have to have it out there. You can still have your hand palm out as if you were ready to fight, with your palm out and your punch ready. And when you do the punch and you withdraw that hand, you can then close all those fingers and you can leave that one out, which is strengthening your the position of your hand as it parries, because it's like an upside down parry. And then because that finger is out, you can then close it on the wrist that you're parrying with the thumb, and then it becomes either a grip, or it can become, you know, pressing on the wrist, you know, with the thumb and so on.
A good way to sort of you know, explain really what you mean is that, you know, Lau is an open hand style, guys, right? You know, we don't close the fists in order to open them in order to grab.
Yeah,
they start off open-handed, right? So you notice the fighting stance, for example, right? And there are many reasons why there's a fighting stance, but there's a reason why we don't have our fist closed to start with, because it's uneconomical. It doesn't conform to the principle of speed for me to open my hand to grab again. Does that make sense?
That's right. So that's, you know, but keeping the one finger open while the others are closed and making the technique tighter, then obviously strengthens your body, your forearm and so on, and your hand, but the finger is still useful. So that's where that dragon finger, if you want, can be then utilized to be a grip. But as far as the Hung Gar sit is concerned, it's repeated 3 times, right? Pulling back, pushing out, pulling back, pushing out, and so on. And, you know, the dragon finger per se for that particular exercise doesn't really have any potential use more than a normal open hand would have. The only thing you're doing there is building up your forearms and, you know, sort of,
I think when you're looking at these different hand shapes, shall we say, whether it's a closed fist, a leopard paw, single knuckle, extended fingers, dart fingers, you know, whatever, there's a plethora of techniques that you can look at. I think there comes a point where, you know, you're over complicating what could essentially be very simple techniques in it. And the only reason, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because of these quite elaborate names and the images and whatnot it conjures up in it, you know. So I think people sometimes miss the point of the simplicity of something because it's called, whether flower hides in the sleeve, dragon finger, or whatever. That's just my opinion. I don't know how you feel about that.
There's only so many ways you can move your hand, but there are several reasons you do so. You know, I mean, you're looking for a smaller area to impact, so you know, penetration. You're looking for a larger area to impact, like a fist, so you know, rather than a phoenix eye, because like a phoenix punch will have a much smaller area. The edge of the palm would have a smaller area. The fingers will have a smaller area, you know, and so on. But then you have a big fist, will have a larger area. You'll have a palm which have a larger area. So these are different impacts. But then you also have the you know, within a form you might have hand positions which are there to build strength, as in the Hung Gar one, you know, or to retain strength while you're doing something with a very awkward position. When you're doing it with an awkward position, you understand it means you can do it from one position to another without worrying too much about the fact that your hand is in an awkward position. In other words, you don't have to sort of pause to change that the method of the hand,
Yep.
and you're just going straight into the next technique, because you can utilize the hand in a variety of different ways.
Yep.
I mean, take a boxer for instance, and as you just mentioned, we don't close our hand to open it again. So a good example is, say, karate, where they'll stand there pretty much most of the time with fists, and I'm not suggesting it's all the time, but they tend to have an awful lot of fists kind of stances, and in doing so, that completely reduces the speed ability to grab someone, because you can't grab someone with a closed fist. If you have your hand open, let's look at it this way. Okay, I know we were designed to jump from tree to tree, and immediately we would be able to grip that tree to continue to go from branch to branch. Okay, now I don't remember doing it myself, but apparently that's what we were designed for. Therefore, closing the hand is far stronger than opening it. So if you have got to try to open your hand to grip someone and you're stuck against their body, it's going to be very difficult to utilize your hand open without, putting it into a very precarious situation. Whereas you try to open it and you might end up with a bent wrist, you might end up, with the wrist being really awkward and being damaged. Yeah. So it's better to be aware of those hands and fingers open, because people will say, oh yeah, but if they see your fingers, they're targets. That's true. That's why you don't keep your fighting stance in one position. That's why you move around. Yeah. That's why you should never stand there at the beginning of a fight at a bus stop and go hi-ya with your fingers out.
Do you know, when I first started training with you, about like 3 or 4 months after, I was walking down the road and these two chaps, they they got a bit leery with me, and in a busy road I was just stood there in a fighting stance, shaking like a shitting dog. I was like, oh, come on man, let's go. I was like, getting psyched up. But if anyone was driving by, I was like, what the hell is he doing? I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought, proper fighting stance. But it was funny. But yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, as we've already discussed in videos and so on, there's no point in making a fighting stance until you're actually in the fight. That's what it's for. Yeah. It's meant to defend you.
Guys, we got video about that as well.
Yeah. Go on. We've really got to get some of these videos in order.
Yeah, we should. We'll redo them. We'll make them better. But we're just getting used to the old video.
But what I did, what I did with this inquiry about the stick is I just went out with my cup of tea in the garden.
Yeah,
and I just spoke to them on the video with a stick. I just said, "This is what you do." I'd much rather do that on a video.
Yeah, but then
I wasn't dressed up. I didn't pretend. No pretense. I didn't stick a belt on and a t-shirt and whatever. I just went out in me jumper and me work clothes.
As long as it wasn't your jocks, that's all right.
No, I wasn't in that much of a rush.
Mate. I was in my jokes, mate. Right. So yeah, guys, listen. If you, by all means, send us video questions. We would love that, because
just all they got to do. They just put it on a.
If not,
talk to us on your damn phone and stick it on Messenger or email it or whatever.
But guys, we don't care. Any question is a good question, whether it's video, text, or whatever. But just please, if you go send us a messenger, like our Facebook, and subscribe and all the rest of it. Right, you gotta get these plugs in, Steve, because everyone does it, and and the thing is, anyway, there's a guy in Hereford who's just teaching a bastardized version of Lau, and he's got quite a big presence on social media, and it's a pain in the ass. He's got all these likes, and I've got nothing, but
ex-student.
Yeah, well, anyway, I won't go there. We've got another question, final question. Okay, again from Anon. So
I know them. Anon.
I was gonna do from make up those funny Mike Roch and stuff like that, but I thought no. Anyway,
no, people won't believe you.
Yeah. Right. So it says, "Hi Steve, I'm a white sash, and I went to another club for extra training when our class was closed the 1 week. I was put in with some guys that had only been training for a few weeks. We were doing hand block number 1. when the Black Sash came over to show us, I could see what he was teaching was different and missing some technical bits, like picking up with the wrist, etc. That was different to my own. That was different to what my own instructor had shown me. What would be your advice? I know I'm only a white sash, but do you speak up and say something, or stay quiet? So, what would be your advice? You know, keep the peace, bite your lip. I mean, God,
well, the worst thing you can say is, "We don't do it that way." Right? That's the worst thing you can say. However, just do it the way that you feel is right. And if he questions it, he's gonna have to give you a reason why he's questioning it. If he just says, "We don't do it that way, this is how we do it," that shouldn't appeal to you, and it shouldn't refer to you, because you're not his student, you're not from that club. But with respect, you can say, "Yeah, I can see how you do it, that's great," and then you just continue to do it the way you do it, unless you feel that his way is better, and then you've learned something. But question everything, and but you know, be respectful, and kind of try to recognize what is useful and what isn't, but you've got to understand also, I think it's fair to say and fair to protect, you know, there are people out there that have just started teaching, or they've been asked to teach, and they haven't got a huge amount of experience, they haven't got a huge amount of answers. And so we've all been there, we've all started there, and of course, as people ask us more difficult questions, it's great for us then to find someone to give us the answers, but we sometimes just can't put the detail in that other people may be able to. So if they have a much higher grade teacher than the club that they then visit, they've got to expect that kind of thing. But like I say, you know, stick to what you do if you believe that what you do is the right way, and I think that's the easiest answer.
If it's logical, so you know, it's like you've got to have a logic to your physicality, because
or the other alternative is make a video and send it to us.
See, you're getting the hang of these plug things. That's it. I remember going to a brown sash course, and I'm not going to say who it was, but it was, you know, one of the Guardians. And, you know, respect. But I'm doing a form, I think it was Lau Gar, or it might have been Feilung Chi. I'm doing a form, and what you'll get, obviously, between different instructor schools and whatnot, is do it like this, do it like that, oh, that's wrong. Now, I don't mind someone saying to me, who has got more experience than me, no problem. I don't mind them saying, do it like this. But it's if they include a because. I'm always interested in the because. Like, I don't like just someone saying, "Oh, you're doing it wrong. Do it like this. Put your hand here instead of there." And a great example of that is at the start of Feilung Chi. You know, are you slicing under the arm, or are you pressing? Are you, you know, on the inside block? You know, so it's on, you know, and loads of people teach that differently, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But my point is, if you know, and with the greatest of respect, you've got to say to people as well, just, you know, thank you so much, but and why am I doing this? You know, I don't think that's a reasonable question, don't you, Steve?
Well, the more questions you ask, the more they learn too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And if they're respectful back, they will say, well, and then they'll know you're interested as well. So they'll give you more information. If you just say, you know, oh, why do you do that? Like you just said. And they say, because that's the right way, and that's it. Exactly. Well, that's not good enough. That's not good enough at all. No, so you know, if they don't think that you want to learn from them, then perhaps they shouldn't teach you. But if they know that you are interested, then they also teach themselves. Not only the technique, but they teach a little humility as well. And that's short in some instructors, I'm telling you.
Oh, hang on, we've had the bitchy podcast. Do we want to go down that road again?
I'm sorry.
We can. I don't mind.
No, I don't mean to be bitchy.
I know, but it's true.
I'm passionate.
I know you are.
I'm passionate.
Listen, if you're going to do something, bloody do it right. I mean, you know, that's how you define what's right. Is, you know, it's up to you. But you know, we have our reasons. You'll have your reasons.
Yeah. I think the important thing is that, you know, anything that we tell you, anything that we say to any listener or any inquirer about a particular technique, the reason we're telling you, we're going to give you the reason. Then it's up to you whether you take that on board and agree with it. So if you see, like earlier you said, I'm doing a set in one of the YouTube things. I did the first set, demonstrate the first set, and they put a thumbs down or whatever. I don't give a shit. You know, it doesn't bother me. I know what I'm doing it for. Perhaps because my horse riding stance wasn't low enough. Maybe it's because I'm frigging 60 something and I'm finding, you know, I sometimes find it hard. I got arthritis in my hips. You know, I'm coming out with all the excuses now.
I'm gonna put, like, shall I just put, like, you know, Adagio for strings in the background?
Yeah. I could go on.
You could.
Yeah. No, it's just, you know, I mean, we do have a saying, you know, when you're teaching someone and you show them something like difficult, like a horse riding stance initially, and you say, remember, I'm doing 60-year-old Kung Fu, you're doing 20-year-old Kung Fu, so yours is going to be better and lower and stronger, hopefully. If you're a 20-year-old doing a bad horse riding stance, you've got no excuse.
Damn right.
It's simple. So, you know, do what you can.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I think that kind of, in a roundabout way, answers the question.
I can talk a good fight, James.
Oh,
I can talk a good fight.
Man. You can. I love it. I've got a wild card question for you. I just thought of it.
Yeah.
What's the martial application of spinning nunchucks? I'm serious. You don't have to answer that one. I just rather.
The majority of nunchuck movements would bounce off the target and hit you, right? So you know you've got to be real careful.
It wasn't a serious question, by the way.
No, I know.
Okay, right. So guys, we are. I'm cough mode. Just say something. Fill in the gap.
Do you know what? I was going to say, do you know how to mute it?
There you go. But, muted. Done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We, hopefully, guys, that kind of sheds light on some of your questions. Right. Want to talk about the fifth set, finger movements of the dragon, Fei Lung Ji. Steve, I'd like you to start it. Go for it. What do you know? What do you know, Steve?
Well, you know where people say this is an internal form and the other's an external form and all that kind of thing. It is done specific to, you know, slowly because of the spirit of the animal, I guess. It also means you've got to put a lot more detail into it because you're doing it slowly. So when you see people do it slowly, and then if they want to increase the speed, they better know how to do it fluidly, because if you do it, you know, bit by bit, then you've not gained anything by doing it slowly. So, you know, if you're doing a form to the speed of your breath, and then you do it without that breath, you no longer have the control of the breath. When I say that, I mean the breath isn't now controlling the movement.
Right.
Hey, hang on, I've got a cough. That's good. I'm going to learn how to. Hang on, I'm watching. Watch it. Let's. How's that? Okay. Am I back?
No, we heard you cough.
What?
No, I'm kidding. We didn't. It was good. You worked technology, old man. I don't know.
I know. Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, so as Fei Lung Chi is, finger movement of the dragon, there's an awful lot of movements in it. There are really, there are excellent movements, and you can see them in detail, But we were talking earlier about the beginning of it as people first move. So when they first take a step, and they land on the heel and then on the toes, because that is the length of your gait. And every time you step, that's how you should step. If you're going forwards, land on your heel, then allow the foot to go down. By the time the foot reaches the floor, your movement is complete, including your block or parry or whatever you intend to do.
It's an interesting opening for this set, and the reason it is because most of our blocks are on the outside out. So inevitably you're closer to the target, but this you're wiping and blocking on the inside, which by definition implies you're going to be closer to the target. What's that about?
It's a transfer of movement from one to the other because you're doing on both sides. So you do a step on one side with 2 blocks. Now remember, it's a new thing at that point in time when you're using 2 blocks to do the same thing, but one's covering the top and one's covering the bottom, and it's a slice inwards, and the palm at the underneath is upside down. Now this is a really interesting point because there's going to be a lot of people, especially the old guys, who remember the old magazine, you know, the old a book, the syllabus book with photographs of Master Yao doing it. Okay, and in the book it's got his hand, his fingers are pointing out to the side because you know, underneath his elbow, right? And in that's in the photograph. And the reason for that, because people will say, oh, but that's how it's done. Well, that has no martial application. It's the slicing using the edge of the hand, but just as the photograph is taken, he is changing and rotating it to turn to bring it into the next right hand block. So people think, oh no, Master Yao does it like that, he slides down like that. Well, no, it doesn't. What it does is you'll slice sideways, as in the first set, when you do the last bit where you slice in and then roll out at the end. So you slice in, roll out, it's exactly the same movement. And then of course, because he's going from one left hand block and a right hand down block to a right hand up block and a left hand down block, and at that point in time where he I am doing, I know, I can't help it, I'm sorry. Okay, and I'll keep my hands further away. And so basically I've got a mirror right in front of me, and I'm just
the thing is though, I'm listening to you say it, I'm following you, I'm not sure whether or not it's, you know, that for people not, you know,
well, this is why it's very difficult. This is difficult to explain.
So it's hard to go through. But you know, I think, you know, it is tough. I believe me, I understand. Steve.
So I think I mean, most of the time we tend to talk about where people, or how we feel where people are going in the wrong direction, and we're looking really at beginners that may not have particularly picked up what an instructor has said, or where the instructor has less experience and maybe hasn't picked it up himself, hasn't had the opportunity to learn it. So we're trying to help those kind of people. I mean, the people who already think they know it, well, you can't teach them. You know what I mean? Their glass is already full. We don't need to worry about those kind of people. If they know it, then good for you. That's great. You just go and do it. What are you fucking listening to me for?
Okay.
You make sure you bleep that out.
All right, I will. So I was going to say, can you give me the reason why we are blocking on the inside rather than we normally block on the outside with the hand at the start?
That's a good point.
Because you look at Lau Gar lookup Kun, or you know, or hand block number 1, you're always blocking to the outside, meaning that hand, that palm up block, Tan Sao or Beauty Looks in the Mirror, whatever you want to call it, is further out from your body, whereas at the start, I'm just going to explain it, whereas in Fei Lung Ji it's slightly closer to your body. Okay, so go on, Steve.
I want you to imagine that you're just about to start the movement, and this is just an example, okay, to get you thinking, that someone actually is holding your left wrist when you do that block. So you are now rotating that left wrist and you've bent it, okay? And in bending your wrist, if someone's holding your wrist, their arm will bend too, their wrist will bend too. If they're holding your wrist and your wrist bends, theirs will bend too. So once you do that and you're rotating it around, you're then using the other hand you can slice it off or you can press it down, and then you're going to move. You're rotating your hand around, you're going to go the other direction now. You can press that hand down, and then you can either spike, in other words, strike with the fingers, or, you know, parry whatever's there. So it's basically a combination. I think a really important thing when you practice Fei Lung Chi is to get people to hold your wrists and see what you can do with those hands. Don't just think of it as a block. Don't just think of it as a parry. Think of it as someone has got both wrists, or one wrist, or the other wrist, and as they're holding those wrists, see what happens to their wrists when you perform your wrist movements. And that's really what that set helps with.
You're absolutely. I think you can see my notes here because I'm writing stuff down as we go, and I was just going to elaborate on that because, as we know, we've got strike, block, lock, throw, grab, release is in the 6 applications that every technique we do can be. If we're smart enough to find it. But one of the best ways when you're doing a set to sort of try and figure out what else could this be used for other than the bleeding obvious block or a strike, which, let's face it, if you call something a block or a strike in a set, most of the time that means you're not thinking hard enough about what you're doing. Now that's I just have a joke with that. But one of the best ways, like you've just said, is just to get people just start with grabs on the wrist. Because understanding what you can do, moving your anatomy around them, is a great starting point before you start going into maybe some arm locks, throws, etc. So.
You know that people often suggest that fights end up on the floor, okay?
Yeah.
But they do start standing up, and usually when 1 or 2 punches have been thrown, the person tries to grab hold of you in order to prevent you from punching them, or to try to get you on the floor. So it's those movements that become useful to perform a transference of anatomy to enable you to take control of whatever's holding those arms or wrists or whatever. So that's what you're doing with that. You can actually move in, and of course you're moving your footwork, so you're very close, and that's what creates the spirit of that.
I got a story.
Dragon.
I got a story about that. Now you're so I was at basic training, Catterick, 2010. Okay, so everyone was outside on the field, and the instructors, all the corporals, the screws, they were really messing with us. We were knackered, tired. They said, right, everyone's going to get in a circle and you're all going to fight, but you're going to go down on your knees and it's going to be like a wrestling thing, but no strikes or whatever. So I'm like, oh, for Christ's sake, I'm 25 years old, do I really need to do this? Anyway, so get down, blah, blah, blah. And the guy they paired me up with was quite a bit of a hefty guy. And first thing he did was he went to grab my arms. Now, you're talking about all these rotations.
Yeah.
My God, he couldn't grab me because all I did was rotate out of it and almost trap him kneeling down. And he was like, oh, and then, but then because there was no finishing, he would just let go and grab again. And I just did the same thing, rotate. And afterwards, the corporals just all took the piss out of me, and they just like, well, what's this still? What are you doing? Rotating your hands? What they do? Like making windscreen wiper gestures with their wrists and that. And I'm just like, well, you laugh, but bloody hell.
Kept you off the floor, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it's funny, but it's just. But again, the rotations, it's
people do, take the mickey out of what they don't understand.
Because it looked a bit weird,
It's fluid. It's fluid. Yeah. I mean, I take the mickey out of things I don't understand, but when it comes to martial arts, I don't understand them because they're not working. I don't understand how they work. I don't know what you're talking.
Listen, capoeira's fine. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we're going back to this fluidness and this ability to. So this set is really performed with the movement with the speed of the breath. So if you're breathing in, you're bringing the movements in. You're breathing out, you're bringing the movements out. So anyone who doesn't do Tai Chi, that's the kind of thing that Tai Chi would perform. That's the kind of speed and the movements and so on. So and it's. Go on.
I was going to say, a lot of people, I'm hijacking you here. People are paying to listen to you. And
they're not paying.
I'm kidding. I'm joking. Finger movements of the dragon, right? So people might always think, oh, it's an internal set because it's the dragon. And we all know the frigging dragon don't exist. It's the one Shaolin animal that don't exist. So, of course, it's going to be, internalized. I'm not saying you do it internally because, as we've discussed on previous podcasts, the line between external and internal styles, is blurred in real Chinese martial art. It's neither one or the other because it's both.
Yeah, but why? Go on.
I was going to say, talk to me about the dragon. Now, in all of the
Yeah.
old sort of, paintings and pictures of dragons, mythical creatures, you see, it's got finger movements of the dragon, and I hear a lot of people say it's a dragon's claw in this, and etc.
Yeah.
And you see in all the paintings of the dragon is actually grabbing, unlike the tiger. The dragon
that's right.
grabs.
People. Yeah, well, we did talk about the tiger before, and the tiger hasn't. It's got paws and claws, but it hasn't got fingers, so it cannot grab. It does not grab, and so you can't. If you want to call it tiger style, I'm afraid you can't grab. It's as simple as that. You've just got to be, batter people with your claw fingers. But the idea of the dragon is, it's when people refer to it as an internal style, the difficulty there, of course, is that's really a Western thing, whether they've, as we've described before, whether it's internal, external. When we talk about the dragon, it's an energy that comes from nowhere. So it's the development of energy from nowhere, and that's really what the essence of this kind of style does. So when you're moving these movements in, like for instance, if someone is holding you and you're rotating your arms a lot and creating these wrist movements to create the dragon, if you want to call it dragon, because you turn it around, then as you turn it around, of course, it becomes a claw, but in effect it becomes a grab, because that's what the dragon is doing most of the time, the dragon. And there are many times dragon many times when the arms are going around, where someone says got your wrist, you rotate that hand round, turns into a claw, but as you're bringing it round, it brings the person's hand, the assailant's hand, to your other hand. So as you're rotating your arm, you're literally, the technique will bring the other person's arm, who's holding your arm, to your other hand, which allows you then to grab it with both hands. So it's I can only do that in a description of which I think I'd done with John in America, didn't I? Did you put that on YouTube?
No, I haven't put that on YouTube. No.
Okay.
I think it's probably worth doing a video on it, but I can take a snippet from it and do it, certainly. That's hard to describe, but most people think when they do the grab, they're grabbing simultaneously with
no, they're
both
not necessarily, because they're rotating it into a position. So they're coming, because both hands, remember, they're coming from one end of the body to the other, one side of the body. The other thing, of course, well, I was just going to describe the energy coming from nowhere is if you're withdrawing your feet and then putting it into another place. Imagine someone who's doing Wing Chun. If you're using a Wing Chun dummy, they call it a Wing Chun dummy, but everyone uses them. You've got your foot by the leg, of the dummy on one side, with your knee touching the knee, and that's teaching you to prevent them allowing them to kick. Don't allow them to kick by feeling their knee with your knee or your leg, and then you can keep your knee against their knee, but you can bring your foot inwards, and rotate it around to the other side of the leg. And when you do that, you may withdraw or you may stick to the leg, whatever, depends on what you're doing, but you can withdraw in and then out, and as you're going out, that is when the creation of energy is applied. So you're drawing back and then pushing out, and there's a massive amount of energy you can exert there, but it looks like you haven't moved. Your body hasn't moved, but in actual fact you've taken yourself closer with your footwork, and so you literally move barely any time or any distance at all backwards. Your body barely moves at all, but your legs move, and you're able to reposition your legs and then push your energy, your whole body in effect, forwards onto that new stance, into the position where the adversary is, and that creates energy to push that adversary back. So it looks like you haven't moved, but suddenly it's an explosion of power, and the adversary gets pushed backwards quite impressively, actually. And that is what they're talking about when they talk about the dragon, because it's an energy that comes from nowhere. It's a development of energy that you don't see. And that really kind of explains the way that set is performed. A lot of rotation, a lot of illusion, and illusion of power as well. So it is quite an interesting form.
What in the old paintings you see the dragon holding an orb? What's that orb? Or the
It's
pearl?
the pearl.
Sorry,
It's
the
the
pearl.
pearl.
Yeah. What's the pearl represent?
If he drops the pearl, he dies. It just represents life or luck or whatever.
Right.
The spirit of the dragon.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's to my knowledge. I'm not as you know, I'm not a great fan of
no,
tradition
I know
in
but
that sense.
But it's equally important to recognise where everything comes from.
But you'll notice he doesn't have any wings, so he doesn't fly, and yet he comes out the clouds. So where's that come from?
Dragons aren't real. Dragons don't exist, people.
King. Well, wait a minute. Didn't St. George slay a dragon?
Oh God!
Yeah.
Did he
King
have a
George,
voice like Sean Connery? Yeah.
No, because he was
dragon.
a big.
Yeah.
No, oh right, that one. No. King George was actually Turkish.
Oh, right.
So where does that get off? And the dragon was the Halley's Comet, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Just let you know.
Right, going back on track, because we gotta be careful. We do go off the beaten path sometimes, don't we? Eh?
God,
I've got to steer you back on sometimes. Old man.
We need a script. We need a script.
Nah, it's fun without one. Okay, so another interesting point when people do, and we're not going to cover every technique, obviously, but just main ones I see a lot of. So when people are raising up both hands, and almost raising their forearms level with their head, sort of thing, what are they doing there? And you do this, I think you do this twice in this form, don't you? But those people who've done it know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
so,
left and right. So you're raising the hands up, but if you imagine that hands are actually flat and people think you're pushing something up, no, you're not pushing anything up. You never use your hands like that to block. What you're actually doing is, as you pull those hands back, you're tensioning, just like many other parts of other forms, you're tensioning those forearms, and because you're able to tension those forearms, you can use those forearms to great effect. So and of course, if someone's punching, for instance, you raise those arms up, you can raise one on the inside of the arm or one on the outside of the arm, and so lock in the elbow. So that's one way of doing it. If someone grabs your wrist and you raise your hand up like that, the next move is what? It's a spear. So once you've raised your hand up like so, you now turn, twist it, spear, and it releases and spears him at the same time.
I think a lot of people will always interpret this, I'm lifting up the arms to create an opening, but again, what?
Oh no.
Do you know what I mean?
No, you're
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
I know.
that.
I know you're not saying it. I know you're quoting them. I would slap you for that if you were to say that, because I didn't teach you like that.
No, I know.
But the thing is, James, if people did that, their fingers would be in a massive risk. A terrible risk. Fingers are a risky business anyway. You can do kung fu without fingers. All you can't do is grab and finger strike. So but the rest of it you can do without fingers.
Another contentious issue I see people do very, very a lot of variations on the technique are the pressing palms. And what I see a lot of, and it's double pressing palms we see in this set, we see a lot of people either not pressing on the same line, or indeed they're not even bending their wrists to generate power. They're just literally tapping it down like you're patting a boy on the head, good boy. And it's like that's a massive contentious issue with me.
It's a very important form for wrist movement. So there's a development of wrist by raising the wrist and then palming it down, just the same when you do press ups on the wrists, so that you are forming an extended stretch on the wrists that way, and then when you do press ups on the palms, you are doing extended stretch in that way. So by applying those together, you get a much stronger palm effect, or palm strike, and of course, to do that palm strike, you raise that wrist or rotate it out of to escape a grab, and but in that case, when you're pressing them double down, as you said, one's in front of the other, one's striking at the knee, one's striking at the shin, or just above the shin, you know, just the top of the shin. You can do it obviously closer if you want to. So, but remember, the closer you are to the adversary, the more effective the technique will be, and the less effect the adversary will have on you. Because if you're trying to press your palms down on a kick that's coming up at the foot end, remember what we talked about, a stick, the end of the stick is the most powerful. Well, the most powerful part of your kick is going to be the foot. The slowest part of the kick is going to be the thigh. The first thing to move, and therefore the first thing you can react to, is the thigh. The best place to hit someone is the thigh, because it's softer and it's slower, so you have a much better effect. And so it literally, you're pressing down to block a kick.
I think a lot of people, you know, you interpret it as both hands have to be striking the single leg, and I say, well, that's not true, because the rear hand, when you're doing the double pressing palm, if it does strike, you know, the leg, it does. But really, it's the front hand that could be striking the rear hand. Is just there in case that foot sneaks past. You know.
If you hit the thigh first and the leg is still there, well, you're going to be able to hit the shin anyway. But you are going to impact the thigh and bring the kick to a halt at the thigh, because the leg, the foot, can't go any higher than the thigh. Absolutely. Right? Because your knee joint doesn't work that way.
Unless you're Stretch Armstrong. He can do it. I've seen him.
But basically, just look at. I mean, hopefully that would make people's understand the perception of number 6 and 5 kick blocks, because they're exactly the same technique.
I just want to talk about the stance involved in pressing those palms down, because a lot of people are either too
they lean forward,
or lean forward, and they would get kicked in the groin anyway, etc.
Or kicked in the face. They'll get kicked in the face and lean forward. So, I mean, depend on the strength of your legs, but if you can go backwards, you're basically sitting in a back stance. You don't have. I mean, a lot of people could have extended their leg out, don't they? Go right down on the floor, and they can have a straight front leg and lean back. Yeah, they go right down on the floor. Remember what I told you the other week about that kung fu guy where I said a guy got a certificate for an Alsatian for his style. And I was fighting him, and he went right down low, like a dancer, really low on that leg. So I just stood on it. Well, there's your answer. That's what you would do with someone who did that. They're doing it for elaboration. They're doing it, if that's a word. They're doing it for form, competitions and stuff. But it's not the correct way to do it. No, it's a form way of doing it.
But if you are going to do that, for God's sake, keep the back leg foot flat on the floor, because so many people do that, and they end up with their heel lifted up, and it just looks goddamn ugly. If you're going to do it, make it look good, people. Okay.
Well, well, if they do it, well, that means basically is anatomically they can't do it, because what they're doing, they're keeping the foot off the heel off the floor, because if they put it on the floor, they'd counterbalance and they'd fall backwards. And why do you want to go down there and fall backwards or risk going backwards? So when someone's kicking you with energy, you don't want to be down that low. But of course, people, as I said, people will do that in a form to make it, you know, to show their flexibility or whatever. But it's the same with the what is it, Bok Pai Jern. Same thing. People, big elaborate movements, and they're trying to make them more and more elaborate, because they copy these extended systems, these extended forms that are from other martial arts. And I mean, let's face it, you look at the nationals today and you watch the forms, barely anyone does a Lau Gar form, and if they do it because they've just built up the courage to actually go and stand there and do a form, never mind a Lau Gar form. They're just you know, grateful to have the courage to go out there and demonstrate. And so but people always win because they just go through these long-winded Tai Chi sword, Tai Chi yang forms, or whatever, Chen forms, wushu. And wushu, and then some weaponry, whatever, which is so flimsy, it's, you know, you can see it just spring around. Yeah, they're following a tradition that isn't a tradition. They're following a tradition that destroyed a tradition. Yeah. In other words, they're following a wushu style that destroyed kung fu because they didn't want people training kung fu in China. And you know, they follow this thing that they believe to be, just because it's Chinese for some reason, it's good. No, do a frigging kung fu one, do a Lau Gar one, do a Lau Gar form, bring Lau Gar forms back, make them good. I mean, when you do a Lau Gar form, if you're going to do it bitty, and what I mean by that is like move, then stop, then move, then stop, then you haven't practiced. So what we really want you to do is to fluid straight through it, fluid, you know, boom, 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 fight the guy, do it like you were fighting, as I said to you before. Yeah,
absolutely. I was listening to you go off on a bitch then, and I forgot what I was going to say.
That wasn't a bitch. That was just,
well, all right, observation,
encouragement.
We all know
observation.
It's a
That's a good one.
But bring Lau Gar back, guys, at the Nationals. Bring Lau Gar back. What was I going to say? Rotations in this form. I'm not just talking about wrist rotations, but there are some, you know, obvious rotations, and by that I mean every time someone says, "Oh, you're holding
body
the
rotations."
ball." Body rotations, hand rotation, arm rotation. But you see a lot of people that can say, "Oh, you're holding a ball and you're pushing out the ball," you know, all the rest of it. It's a chi ball. I heard that once. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
but
I call it a beach ball. I'm obviously on the wrong track. Son of a beach.
Son of a beach. All right, you know, calm down. Listen, this is why I'm going bold, because all your jokes go over my head.
Yeah.
Talk, and we'll finish it. We'll finish Phalange with that. But please just talk a bit about the rotations you're making in this form, and the obvious ones, and you know why they're important.
Well, it's really important that you're rotating the spine. You're not rotating. You know, obviously the shoulders will go with the spine. The arms will be rotated, obviously, from the shoulders. But you're moving forwards and backwards as far as the legs are concerned. You know, and so it's very important. Where do you put your feet before you create this rotation? You know, because what you're doing effectively is rolling around to the back and then round back to the front again. So it's a rotation is the hardest thing you can throw energy at or contain. In other words, the adversary cannot follow it with any strength, because you have to keep changing your muscle groups in order to follow a rotation. And I know people won't understand what I'm talking about.
But it's not a linear thing, because by nature it's rotation. So
it's difficult.
Is constantly changing when you're
exactly.
When you're rotating.
Yes.
It's never fixed. Yeah. That's all right. Yeah. See, I listened. See that? Hey.
Yeah. So that's exactly right. The force is the direction of force is changing.
I was hoping I'd get a compliment, but I never do.
Hey, no, wait a minute. I said thanks. That's it. That's your compliment.
All right, I'm kidding. I'm joking. No, don't do that. I'll get a big head. Right. Go on. Sorry, you were saying.
No, that's you took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what you're right in saying that. You know, which is it's great. You know, rotation is very difficult to follow with any kind of strength. Linear strength is easy. If someone's pushing you, you can pull them. If someone's pulling you, you can push them. But if someone's rotating round, where do you apply your energy? Because they're not going to be in the same place anymore. They're going to be turning, and so the rotation of the body is pulling back, and then you may well step forward, and there's that little subtle step that creates the energy, puts you in front, where you don't look like you're in front because you're still leaning on your back leg, but you've actually gone forwards with the other foot, and now you're about to explode. So you're exploding energy forwards, and that's what makes Phalange interesting, because it's that's why it's called the dragon, because simply it is energy coming from nowhere. So the rotation energy it develops an ability to absorb energy and then pacify it and then explode with it.
What,
if you like, best way to describe it.
Did this set ever change back when Mastia was adding sort of the left-hand side?
Yeah, that changed. That's got a left-hand side as well now, as you know.
Right, so Phelan G was originally a lot shorter. Obviously.
Yeah, it was a lot shorter. It was
because you do
right-handed
repeat things right at the end, don't you?
Yeah.
Well, all the way through. So Lung is dragon, is that right?
Yeah. Phelan.
Yeah. Okay. And any parting comments on that set, Steve? Or
No, I do. People find it difficult to practice that set well because it's slow, so they have to put a lot of detail into it, and it's a very easy set for instructors to see where the mistakes are.
Yeah.
And it's nothing wrong with making mistakes ever. Okay, what's important is that you improve on them, that you use them. If you don't make mistakes, you can't learn anything, but if you make mistakes, you've got to learn from them. And so you've just got to be fluid, and you've got to understand that you do have wrists. Okay, and a lot of people, they do that set and they can barely move their wrists because they're trying to concentrate on what the next move is and so on. But make the move, with all the flexibility of your ankles, your knees, your hips, your spine and your shoulders and your elbows and your wrists and your fingers. Okay, and the good thing is, of course, a dragon does grab, a tiger doesn't.
There you go. So take note, Canada, for it is written. Right, I think we're gonna stop there. I think, Steve. I mean, we've droned on a bit, and once again, guys, if you've got any questions and you want more specificity, by all means.
What?
Hey. I'm a presenter. I got to know these big words.
I didn't know it existed.
If you need more specificity, as to what we're talking about, please, we can send you videos. Obviously, we're not going to send you, bloody, a 3-hour epic. But if it's short, sharp, and to the point, we can do our best. Likewise, if you can send us videos, so we know exactly what you're talking about, that can work. And again,
everyone's got a phone. It's just a matter of getting a guy to hold a phone and say, "I do it this way. I don't agree with you." Guys, and we can have a good, friendly argument like that.
And guys, you need to understand, we're not here saying this. What we say is the gospel truth. It's just another point of view, and it's so
our
important.
Point of view. That's it. Yeah,
and it's so important to have a different point of view.
It's just based on experience and logic. Yeah. So there may be other logical ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well. Right. So. Please, guys, send us messages, send us all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like us on YouTube, like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on Podbean. That would be a massive favour to us. Just try and get up in the rankings as well.
What we're opposed to, I think, James, is just illogical ways.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. We're not opposed to, martial arts, other martial arts. We're opposed to illogical ways of doing martial arts.
Yeah.
But I also respect that, you're always a beginner. Okay, people have to start from the beginning, so they're going to do it wrong. Yeah. But when they profess to be, great, and when they teach bad things, saying they're great, that's what really pisses me off.
For real. I just remembered we didn't answer the guy's question about books. Okay, if we had any good books we could recommend. So have you got anything off the top of your head that you? I know you're probably not a book.
Yeah, I'm not a book person. I think there. Hey, I'm writing a book, so when that's ready, it'll be available somewhere. So,
guys, can I just say it is hot stuff. This book, it's very good. It's very technical. I mean it, and it's one of the best books on, martial art, let alone kung fu, that you'll probably ever find.
Yeah, you were quite shocked when I told you about my book, and I sent you a bit.
Yeah,
you were quite shocked when you thought I didn't have that kind of intelligence.
That is not true.
You said I've never read a book like that before.
No. Okay, so that's what I meant.
It's not dandy. That's why.
Yeah, no, but I've read my fair share of martial art books. Like a lot of people listening, I don't read them anymore because I'm of the. You opened the chasm within me, so I now no longer look for text other than referencing sort of names and maybe some tidbit information, but all my learning comes from sort of within and from you, and obviously teaching other people. But I've read my fair share of martial art books, and what you wrote, what you put down is incredibly insightful about what Kung Fu should be, and as you perceive it. That's the caveat, but there's reason and there's logic behind everything you talk about. And if anyone was to read that and come up with an argument, I'd be amazed, because what you talk is and I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt, Mr. Newbie, but it was an excellent book, and so I look forward to that, and a first edition maybe. Hey, just
signed. I just wish I'd have wrote Harry Potter. That's all.
I tell you what, yeah, well, that's it. But did you ever go? You had some books when you were when you first started, did you? Can you remember any of them?
Yeah, I just got that History of Philosophy and Technique, which I would never recommend to anyone.
No, because that's 1970s Kung Fu, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I do. And the rest of my books basically Bruce Lee books, self-defense, and that's Shisao, that kind of thing. Interested me. I've got his Tao Chu Can Do, obviously. I've got a lot of weaponry books that tell you the history of weaponry and so on, so I am interested in that. I've got the what really probably one of my favourite books is the Art of War.
Right.
Yeah, that's that's one that I really enjoy, because the tactics of war are identical to the tactics of a fight between two people, or a gang for that matter.
No, it's fascinating. Yeah, Sun Tzu, or someone said Sun Tzu. no, come on, science.
Sun Tzu is Art of War.
Yeah. What books that stood out for me? Because I had every single Bruce Lee book. I think Tao Jeet Kune Do, all of his Sayings of the Dragon. I had a bookshelf full of them. I've packed them up now because I just didn't read them. But a good Bruce Lee book was one of the first ones I got was Bruce Lee's Fighting Method. That was one of the.
I got that one, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was maybe his second book he wrote in America. His first one was Gung, as in Gung Fu, the philosophical art of self-defense. But the second one was Bruce Lee's Fighting Method, and I think he had a series of 4 books, and they were interesting, if only to sort of understand or open your eyes to sort of economy of striking and motion and stuff like that. So he really went on a lot about that, and they were always good. Again, if you're a seasoned practitioner, you're probably not gonna find it that interesting, but who knows if you're that way inclined. I had another book that I really enjoyed. It was a bit about Shaolin Kung Fu. It's called The Art of Shaolin Kung Fu by Wong Q Kit, and that's Kiew KIT. And all that was, it's text heavy. There's a lot of illustrations as well, but it was pretty much a sort of introduction to a lot of different Shaolin styles. So you might even, I haven't read it for a long time, but I remember it being good. You might even find Dragon Finger in there, who knows. Another one,
I got a few Tai Chi books as well.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And another good book I found, and I only do the 2, but it's called Analysis of Shaolin China by Dr. Yang Jung-Ming, and that one's good, and I'll tell you why. Because if you're interested in breaking down your forms, obviously you've got an instructor, you ask, you train, all the rest of it, but as a reference, a lot of these China techniques, or Kung Lao, whatever you want to call it, you'll see patterns, and you'll identify certain moves which you can interpret as, oh, that could be a move from Back Pai Jun or Fei Lung Ji, or this, that, and the other. And it's not a direct application, but it's just to open your mind a bit to the physicality of the martial arts, and just say, oh, I could interpret it that in that way, etc. So that was interesting. That's a good book, but obviously it doesn't substitute training, guys, and really putting the hours in, etc. But I don't really recommend a lot of books, to be honest, but
Yeah, and I do have to just add at the end, because we did talk about this, that how, going back to the ABC concept of big letters, by the time you've done Fei Long Chi, I mean, when you become really good at it, those rotations should be pretty much almost invisible.
Yeah.
They are movements that will, at the moment when you learn a form, all the movements are exaggerated. When you master the form, movements are barely recognizable.
Yeah, but guys, you'll never master the form. Sorry.
No. Yeah, that's true.
Right then, old man, we got a 0121 do one.
Okay, well, I've got to go and cook the dinner now. I'm going to do a prawn Chinese with garlic and onions and all. Oh God, we've run out of garlic. Okay. Anyway, but the prawns are bloody huge, so they're brilliant. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, I hope you enjoy
tomorrow we're going to have a barbecue.
Oh, lovely. Excellent. Good stuff. Right, guys, thanks again for joining us on another episode of the Kung Fu Podcast. My name's James Still, and as ever, I'm joined by my teacher, Mr. Steve Newby, and we'd like to thank you for sticking with us and listening to us drone on. Thanks again, guys. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Say thank you, chef.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Take care.
Assume I kick your little Beijing ass right now, man. I ain't scared of you. I know you know that little tricky shit. Come on.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So until next time, take care of yourselves and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Now, why doesn't somebody pull off 45 and bang, settle it? No, no guns.
How's that?
That's much better actually. Just raise your voice.
Biddy 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 biddy.
Oh, what's up, Buck?
Yeah. You're fucked, Buck.
Do you know his head looked like a penis? It did. If you watch it back, his head looked just like that.